The left is pouncing on a story about Texas 6-week abortion ban going into effect because the U.S. Supreme Court has stayed silent and they're outraged. And they've got some hashtags to go along with this, like American Taliban and Sharia law. And they're saying things like, we were fighting the enemy overseas when they were when it was right here in front of us because the Republicans, are religious and dogmatic and want to take away people's right to choose. Oh, yeah? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Bill de Blasio who took away people's right to choose whether or not to get a medical procedure. I'm pretty sure it's the businesses in New York that are choosing to discriminate against people who are ineligible for the vaccine. I'm pretty sure it's all of the urban liberal Democrat types in New York who are literally telling you, you have no right to choose. So who's really pro-choice here? Because I'll tell you this, man. I've always been fairly libertarian in the philosophical sense, not like the party or anything like that. I've always been like, you got to make the choice that's right for you. And that comes to very interesting and very challenging ethical conundrums pertaining to pro-life versus pro-choice. But you know what? And we can get into it. A lot of people don't like it because it's a very, very contentious issue. And admittedly, I think the issue of abortion is quite possibly one of the most difficult ethical conundrums we face because there's no middle ground, period. There's just none. And that means a lot of people are always going to be mad. But I've always resorted to, I do not believe the government should be intervening in what people are doing medically. And hear me out, because, a lot of conservatives have said I'm secretly or actually pro-life and just need to accept it because I'm not for what the left does in terms of abortion. I think they're over the top and wrong. But I think there's a conversation that needs to be had, one that I don't have the answers to. And I'll put it this way. When I sat down with Glenn Beck a while ago now, I think maybe even, 2 years ago, maybe? Wow. Was it 2 years ago? Man, time flies. We had a discussion about it, and we talked about government principles and protecting life, and we agreed on so much, but we hit an impasse on where the government has to step in, and that's the big challenge. But I would say this. My position has always been fairly traditionally liberal, safe, legal, and rare, meaning I honestly think there should be, well, it is very difficult. I'm not the arbiter of morality, which is why I don't often make videos about this stuff. I really, really don't know, other than the government has a duty to protect life. Fact. But there is an individual that has to go and talk to a doctor about something that may be challenging, disturbing, and I don't think the state should be involved in that. I will say, personally, I am not in favor of purposeless abortion or abortion as contraception. That I believe is wrong and shouldn't be allowed. The problem with that is, and that's why conservatives say I'm actually pro-life, but the problem is, where does the government go into the private medical records of an individual to determine this stuff? And I'm just like, man, far be it from me. But I'll tell you this. Comment, let me know what you think. Let's read the news, and I'll tell you one thing. While I'm getting criticized for the left for not speaking out and saying what Texas is doing is wrong, my response is this. Texas is enacting a 6-week abortion ban, the heartbeat bill, saying if the baby has a heartbeat, you cannot terminate it. It is an independent life. Okay, there are some issues there, and I absolutely am willing to present the nuance and the criticism, but I will tell you, how dare you come to me and say, why won't you support a women's right to choose when we literally have a story about a woman who has been arrested for having a fake COVID vaccine card. Now, if you want to claim, well, that's forgery and fraud, this woman has a right to choose, does she not? Why should she be subjected to laws because she chose not to get a medical procedure? You can't have it both ways. And no, I will not all of a sudden speak up in defense of what you want when you've crapped all over the idea of medical autonomy and choice. You come to me and say pro-choice, I say bull crap. These people are pro-abortion, and that's why they want New York to have the mandates. That's why they've written articles that they demand vaccine mandates. They don't want choice for you. They just don't want to admit they want abortion. And you might be saying, oh, Tim is being so hyperbolic. Yes. When Lena Dunham came out and said she wished she had an abortion. When Michelle, what's her name? Wolf, I think her name, whatever, on Netflix. She goes, you get an abortion and you... I'm like, yeah, that's not what pro-choice was supposed to be. At least not when I was growing up. And then when I have these conversations with, Christians and Catholics, they say, see, Tim, you're pro-life. And I'm like, dude, Just because the left went insane doesn't mean my position changed. I grew up believing and being told abortion was always wrong. But there were some difficult situations in which a mother has to make that choice with her doctor. And it's not about financial reasons, in which case I'm like, yo, I don't think the government should be getting involved. And we got to find out where that line is. I honestly don't know, because I'm not the arbiter of morality. But we'll get into all this. Instead of, I'll do the rant and the philosophy stuff after I tell you the news. Here's the big breaking news from CBS. A controversial Texas law banning abortions after 6 weeks of pregnancy went into effect at midnight after the U.S. Supreme Court did not act on a request from pro-abortion rights groups. Look at that, pro-abortion. They're even saying it in CBS News. This is something people need to understand. This is not pro-choice. This is pro-abortion. The law is one of the nation's most restrictive, prohibiting nearly all abortions in the state. The abortion rights group warned the high court is expected to issue a decision on the bid from the providers. Now, what the right is saying, many on the right, is that this is the heartbeat bill, meaning if the baby has a heartbeat, it is an independent life. You can't kill it. I totally understand and respect that argument 100%. My issue is government intervention, not the right to life. I believe life begins at conception. I believe to say anything otherwise is just an arbitrary argument that seeks to serve one's political interests. You know, when I was talking with Vosh, I think it was in the member segment we just did recently with Charlie and Vosh, and I asked him, like, when does life begin? And I or maybe it was Charlie who asked it, but he said probably birth. And I'm like, that's wrong, because there are, I think at 5 months, a baby in the womb can survive on its own. The challenges I have when it comes to this stuff is I think abortion is wrong, but I also think there's some circumstances where, like, I talked with Seamus Coughlin about this of Freedom Tunes. We had an interesting discussion. We didn't see things eye to eye, but I'm like, I think we agree a lot. If the mother would die and the baby would die, or the baby would die anyway, or the mother would die, then I'm like, then someone's going to have to make a very difficult choice. But what we heard from, like, Northam, where he was like, the baby will be delivered, and then, no, that's insane. If the mother and the baby are healthy and can survive, I think it's wrong. I think safe, legal, and rare. I do not believe that people can just go in and say, for no reason whatsoever, you know what? It was an accident. Oh, well, too bad. In fact, I find this really interesting because conservatives often say force and incest are exemptions. And I'm like, I don't even agree with that. And people are like, see, you're pro-life. And I'm like, no, but what I'm saying is there will probably be circumstances where people abuse the system. And I think that's bad and wrong. But I just can't bring myself to be like, empower the government more to get involved in people's private medical decisions and be forced to provide proof as to their medical status. I'm like, I don't like it for vaccines. I don't like it for anything. Stay the hell out of my business. But I get it. To be fair to the conservative argument, this is a second independent life that is in the equation in need of an advocate, which is why I'm just like, man, ultimately, the only thing I can do is err on the side of less government, which means it could be morally wrong. And I just don't know, because I'm more concerned about the slippery slope of what happens when government gets involved in medical care. That's why I've often said I'm in favor of universal health care. I would love universal health care. I think it is the ideal system. The problem is right now, our government, most governments are corruptible, and they wanted to distribute the vaccine based on race. They tried. I think some places did it, in which case I'm like, yo, how can I be in favor of a medical system that's going to racialize distribution? Get the government out of it. And so then I fall to this more liberal position of we can have some government funded healthcare services and we need private insurance. It is tough. It's hard to know what the answers are. People like to say I'm a milquetoast fence sitter. And I don't think it's because I think the issue is people demand that I take a moral position. And I'm like, ultimately, philosophically, I don't know. And that's why I don't take strong philosophical positions. And that sucks, I guess, for the people on the left who are criticizing me, saying I should be defending them when they're total and complete hypocrites. And that's the thing. They're like, why won't Tim, they tweeted me, why won't you badmouth the Republicans? Because the Republicans tell me I'm morally, legally, and ethically wrong, but they're consistent on their positions. The Democrats are just completely not. At least I can understand the argument from the right, even if we disagree on the line. And I think Louis C.K. said it really well. He was like, if I thought people were going around killing babies, I'd be pissed off too. And I'm like, yo, they are. The challenge for me is, now I was talking to Seamus about this. The problem we face is that I think it's something like 99% of abortions, they say no reason given. And so I think we have extreme abuse of the system, and I don't know what the answer is. I really, really don't. But maybe there is something to be said in that we need the option for individuals to go to the doctor and make difficult choices pertaining to their own health. And maybe there should be some justification for it. Now, this doesn't even go that far. So this is at 6 weeks, you will not be allowed. Well, let me read it. They say, in addition to outlawing abortion as early as 6 weeks into a pregnancy, before most women know they're pregnant, the measure allows private citizens to bring civil lawsuits against anyone who provides an abortion after 6 weeks or helps a woman access the procedure, such as a friend who drives a woman to obtain an abortion or clinic staff. Those found in violation of the law are required to pay at least $10,000 to the person who successfully brought the suit. I wonder what standing they would have. Now, once again, CBS says the pro-abortion rights organization had warned that if permitted to take effect, the ban would immediately and catastrophically reduce abortion access in Texas. The groups included Planned Parenthood, the Center for Reproductive Rights, the ACLU, and abortion providers. They estimated that at least 85% of women who undergo abortions in Texas are at least 6 weeks pregnant, and warned the law would force many clinics to close. The left is arguing many women don't know that they're pregnant by 6 weeks. There's potentially a 2-week window where they may know. The argument is that the first time the woman misses her period, that's when she realizes she may be pregnant. She gets a test. They backdate the start of pregnancy to the last known period because there's no way to know exactly when it started in that period. That would mean women would have, I think, at least 2 weeks. Now, the issue I take with this is that women could just say whenever their period was and then grant themselves a month. They could just lie about this. You see the issue? So I'm genuinely confused by the left's argument on this. 2 weeks, that's a decent amount of time. I get it. It might be stressful and wrong. All I can do is say this. I once again see hypocrisy from the left. If you truly understand what the pro-life argument is, then I'm not seeing hypocrisy. I'm seeing individuals say that you have a woman and you have a baby, 2 individual lives. I disagree with the ultimate assessment. My issue is I don't think the state should be able to force someone to provide their body to someone else, which creates a predicament because I don't think abortion should be used as contraception, as a contraceptive. But I also don't think the government has a right to be like, yeah, well, too bad, your body must be provided to somebody else. It's tough. And I think when you honestly listen to everybody, you'll see that there are real issues and that make it very difficult to come to a conclusion on this one, which is why I said, far be it for me to pretend to have any moral answers. I'm not a priest. I'm not arbiter of morality. But when it comes to the pro-choice argument, I'm not a fan of the arbitrary pro-abortion argument or any of that stuff. But I recognize, what if through no fault of your own, you are, as a woman, you find yourself here carrying a life that you can't bring to term for some reason, or that you're struggling, and the government's going to say to you, you have no choice, regardless of, you have no bodily autonomy. That's tough. It really is. Because it means you're staring down the barrel of ending a life, because life begins at contraception, or having to carry this, this baby to term. It's rough. You know what, though? Often I find myself just deferring back to women on the issue because I believe most women are pro-life. And so far be it from me as a dude to tell women what they should or shouldn't do. Hey, how about that? So I only ask for a little bit of consistency. Now, if most women are pro-life, I just like, you know what? I guess it's more of an issue if it was my child, but it is tough. Again, you can't come to me for this kind of morality stuff. I can talk to you about freedom. But this is one of the ultimate questions of freedom, and that's why I don't have an answer for it, because either you say the government does intervene in medical decisions, some of which are very difficult, very personal, and very embarrassing, or they don't, in which case they aren't protecting all life. Dave Smith, the Mises Caucus guys, they're pro-life, and they're libertarians. And their point is that the government has an obligation. Look, libertarian doesn't mean no government, but the government has an obligation to protect life. It's one of the things they do. That's tough. But let me tell you this. Dan Rather, he tweeted, It's worth noting that many of the same people attacking the Biden administration for leaving women's rights behind in Afghanistan are eager to control women's bodies and choices in the United States. Many of the same people attacking, but you mean Democrats? The ones who are telling women and men and everybody they have no right to choose their medical, they have no right to make medical decisions in New York City, in San Francisco, in New Orleans, in LA, et cetera, et cetera. San Jose is implementing this. What about Google? Google's telling women they have no right to choose. Liars. They're lying to you. They're pro-abortion. Okay, I'll tell you this. You may be on the right. You may be on the left. And the reason I think both sides don't like me, why the left is criticizing me and why the right is criticizing me, is because I'm not pro-life and I'm not pro-abortion. My morality as a dude who can't get pregnant is mostly just falling on decentralization of power, which creates very serious ethical conundrums. And now we get some viral trends. Sharia law. Amazing. Look at this. Someone drew the ISIS flag, but it says Republican. Welcome to Texas. Sharia law and the purge all rolled into one state. Here we have American Taliban. Isn't that great? All of these people blaming, saying that Texas is anything like the Taliban. It's insane. And it's a lie. And it's sheer hypocrisy. Because while I may not be able to give you any good moral answers or religious answers or any of the great truths about the issue of life versus choice, I can tell you this. From Newsweek, woman caught with fake COVID vaccine card with Moderna written on it. Okay, well, you spelled Moderna wrong, lady. But here's this woman. An Illinois woman was arrested in Hawaii for allegedly submitting a fake vaccine card on which the name of the jab she claimed to have received was misspelled. What if the doctor misspelled it? So innocent until proven guilty. But I saw this story and it's also going viral. On Twitter, Moderna is also right here. Look at this. So I pulled up Sharia law, viral trend, and you have Moderna right here trending in the U.S. And what are these people all saying? They're making fun of her. See what the funky cold Moderna makes you do. A lot of news are talking about it, misspelling Moderna, fake COVID card. And they're like, you can just go and get a free vaccine. All of these people are ragging on this woman. Did they ever stop to ask whether this woman has a right to choose what is done to her body? Or does the state have the right to control it? So I'll tell you this. Here's your argument, pro-lifers. When anyone comes to you and says you can't be pro-life, that's true. You'd be like, I was pro-choice until I agreed with you on the vaccine mandates. The state should have a right to determine what you can do with your body, right? That's what they're doing in New York. There's no medical exemptions in New York. No, they're putting out these posters where you have to, not this one, here we go. You have to be vaccinated no matter what. I'm going to call this number too. I'm going to call in a second. New York City requires you be vaccinated against COVID-19 to enter this business. To find out where to get a free vaccine, visit blah, blah, blah. And then it says you have a right to be free from discrimination or harassment from businesses such as gyms and restaurants. Contact the NYC Commission on Human Rights. There's no medical exemption. So in New York, if you want to use basic services, you have to undergo a medical procedure by order of the state. Now, I'll tell you why I find this so funny. When it comes to life versus choice, being pro-life, it depends on your argument, right? When I was talking to Seamus, he said, obviously, if there would be the death of the woman and the child or some very serious medical effects, those are okay. And that's why I'm like, that's the issue. Because what if that happens? Should that woman have to then file with the state? Like, here's exactly why, and like still have to carry maybe like a stillborn baby or something like that. And then Seamus said that that's not an abortion. An abortion is when you kill a living, viable baby. And I'm like, now we're arguing semantics, because I would agree with you to a great extent, right? That arbitrarily just ending a baby's life is wrong. And the challenge is where you allow the government to enter into the discussion. But I'll tell you, no woman is being barred, from a public accommodation by nature of having a pregnancy she can't terminate. She's just told, well, you're pregnant, the baby's fine, you can't end its life. And there's some libertarian arguments there, sure. But in New York City, they're telling everyone, undergo this minor medical procedure or you can't buy a cheeseburger. Isn't one substantially more egregious than the other? What I mean to say is, telling someone who gets pregnant that has a healthy baby that it's their responsibility now, barring, exceptions, is not the same as telling people undergo a medical procedure by order of the state. Otherwise, you can't live in this city anymore. They're different. They're very serious ethical questions that people have pondered for generations. I will never pretend to be a great philosopher who knows everything about the world. I have only questions. I know so little. So, of course, people have strong positions. I, personally, I don't know. And that's bad. And people will get mad at me for it. But, yo, I'm just some dude on the internet talking to the camera. Here's what I want to see. I want to see the left actually be for freedom and for bodily autonomy. They're not. So I will tell you this. My final thought to all the pro-lifers. You will find that I will be more likely on your side for several reasons, even though we disagree on some of these core issues. Again, why conservatives probably call me pro-life. When I stand here on the political compass, leaning slightly center-left, and I look to my right, I see Seamus Coughlin, who says, I get it, right? If there is a serious medical issue that the mother and the baby are facing, and there's a difficult decision has to be made, that's not an abortion. An abortion is ending a living, viable baby, just ending its life. That's wrong. And I say, I totally understand. I totally understand that. I agree with that. Now, let's have a discussion about where the government comes in and how we manage that. So ultimately, I lean more towards the government not being involved, which gives more leeway to the person and then probably would result in abuse of this, which is, it sucks. And then I look to my left and I don't see anything. I'm like, I don't see anybody standing there. So Seamus hands me what is it? What? Not a telescope, not a periscope. What's the, whatever. What's the, I can't think of the word, but a pair of binoculars. We'll go with that one. And I look through it, and way down off in the distance, I see Lena Dunham saying she wished she had an abortion. And I'm like, yo, that lady's crazy. And I see Tulsi Gabbard, who says safe, legal, and rare. And I'm like, that's what I'm talking about. Safe, legal, and rare. You got to have a long conversation about this. But the best I can say is this. If the left is going to come to me and say you have no bodily autonomy when it comes to the vaccines, but women should be allowed to just arbitrarily, whenever they want for any reason, get an abortion without question, I'm going to be like, yo, there's a very serious hole in your argument, and I don't trust you. Here you go. I'll say it for the 800th time. I don't have the answers, man. I can tell you that, though. So hopefully that's enough to either show leftists that they're being hypocritical or provide pro-lifers with an argument as to why the left is wrong about Texas. I'll leave it there. Next segment will be at 4 p.m. over at youtube.com/Timcast. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all then.